I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's January 11th, and we have a lot to talk about. And today, we're talking about headaches. For some people, getting a headache means mild discomfort. For others, it can mean experiencing debilitating pain, compromised vision, and other serious effects. People get headaches for a lot of different reasons. Consuming too much caffeine, consuming too much alcohol the night before, not eating enough, not getting enough sleep, or simply dealing with the stress and anxiety of everyday living. Clearly, you don't have to be living with MS to experience a headache. But research has shown that people living with MS are more likely to experience headaches than people who don't have MS. And there's even some evidence that suggests that headaches may be one of the earliest symptoms of MS. Joining me to talk about what you can do about headaches if you're living with MS is Dr. Meagan Adamson, a nurse practitioner who specializes in treating both headaches and multiple sclerosis. But before we get to my conversation with Dr. Adamson, there are a few other things that you should know about. Over the past year, we've talked a lot about the National MS Society's Pathways to Cures initiative. If you need a quick refresher, this is a research roadmap designed to stop MS progression, restore lost function, and end MS forever. These are profoundly important goals. As I've said before, I've heard the MS Society use the word cure more in the past 2 years than I've ever heard it before. And last month, the National MS Society announced funding for 13 new research projects focused on detecting MS at its earliest stages, before obvious symptoms even appear. The thinking here is that if MS can be detected before someone becomes symptomatic, treating them with high-efficacy disease-modifying therapy may result in that person never experiencing any MS symptoms. And while that may not satisfy a technical definition of the word cure, it certainly satisfies the functional definition. That person is going to live their life without having to deal with any of the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. And to me, that's a pretty big deal. One of the research projects being funded involves investigators from Harvard and the University of British Columbia who are using long-range health data to detect early, unrecognized warning signs of MS. This work is being led by Dr. Helen Tremlett, a recognized expert in identifying and understanding this pre-symptomatic or prodromal phase of multiple sclerosis. And if you'd like to learn more about the MS prodrome, you can check out episode 202 of the podcast, when Dr. Tremlett walked us through some of her work. Now, another research project being funded will enable researchers at Sweden's Karolinska Institute to map out windows of exposure to explain how combinations of risk factors may lead to MS. And one more project involves researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, who are developing profiles of early exposures to infectious agents like viruses to understand whether they play a role in triggering MS later. If you'd like to review all 13 of the research projects that received funding, you'll find a link to that information in today's show notes. In addition to providing funding for these 13 research projects, a portion of the almost $7 million investment will go toward providing so-called rescue supplements. The MS Society is providing additional time and funding to 22 of its funded investigators so that they can continue critical work on research projects that had been disrupted by COVID-19. Following the very encouraging results from a Phase 2 clinical trial, French pharmaceutical company AB Science has received approval from the French Health Authority to launch a phase 3 clinical trial confirming the safety and efficacy of masitinib in adults with primary progressive MS and non-active secondary progressive MS. Masitinib is an oral medication that works by blocking an enzyme that's essential for the activity of innate immune cells, the cells which are thought to drive neuroinflammation and neurodegeneration in progressive MS. By suppressing these cells, masitinib is expected to slow disease progression in progressive forms of MS. And one of the benefits of masitinib is that it selectively targets these innate immune cells, leaving the rest of the immune system intact. Now, the phase 2 clinical trial involved 656 patients and showed that compared to a placebo, 2 years of treatment with masitinib was effective at significantly slowing disability progression in adults with progressive forms of MS. Interestingly, masitinib has actually been available in Europe since 2009, but not to humans. It's been marketed under the name Masivet, and it's used as a treatment for mast cell tumors in dogs. Now, the phase 3 clinical trial is recruiting 800 adults between the ages of 18 and 65 with primary progressive or non-active secondary progressive MS. Study participants must have an EDSS score between 3.0 and 6.0, which translates to moderate disability. And study participants must not have any T1 gadolinium-enhancing brain lesions on their MRI scan. A T1 gadolinium-enhancing lesion is an MS lesion with active inflammation. The 800 study participants will receive either masitinib or a placebo for up to 2 years, and the study is going to be carried out at 75 sites in Europe, the United States, Canada, Israel, and South Africa. Now, we first talked about masitinib on the podcast back in September 2020, when AB Science first reported their encouraging phase 2 clinical trial results, and you can be sure that we'll keep you updated as the phase 3 study moves forward. Meantime, if you'd like to review the details of the phase 2 clinical trial for masitinib, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that there was a new pill available that research had proven could lessen the effects of MS fatigue. And imagine that this same pill had been shown to also improve mobility, balance, and even cognition for people living with MS. In fact, this very same medication had also been shown to help alleviate depression, and there were no side effects associated with this new drug. I imagine that if I told you about a medication that could do all of this, many of you would be asking your neurologist for that prescription. Well, we don't really have to use our imaginations, because there is something that's been shown to deliver all of these benefits to people living with MS. But it's not a pill, it's exercise. And even though the evidence continues to mount in support of exercise as a viable treatment for managing many MS symptoms and improving quality of life, it's estimated that 80% of the people living with MS report overall physical inactivity. So what we have here seems to be a major disconnect. I sometimes think that if there were TV commercials promoting exercise for people living with MS, like the commercials we see for some disease-modifying therapies, or maybe if exercise somehow cost a lot of money, like so many prescription medications, more people might be motivated to add exercise to their daily routine. There's a reason that the National MS Society recommends exercise or physical activity for everyone living with MS at every level of ability. It's because exercise has been proven to mitigate so many of the symptoms that people living with MS face every day. I came across a really interesting article written by two experts, Dr. Robert Model and Dr. Brian Sandroff. And Drs. Model and Sandroff make the point that neurologists can be the agents of change here. Just as your neurologist discusses other aspects of your treatment plan with you, Doctors Model and Sandroff propose that this conversation could be expanded to include exercise. And in their article, they suggest that this has to be more than a vague, exercise is good for you, you should be exercising kind of conversation. Exercise should be part of your treatment plan, just like disease-modifying therapy or occupational therapy. And that means that while the neurologist can introduce exercise into their conversation, the details need to be agreed upon based on shared decision-making with the patient. And then, just as a doctor will write a prescription for a new drug, your neurologist should be the one to connect you with the resources that you'll need to put together a safe and effective exercise regimen. Now, some of you might be wondering if recommending exercise as part of an MS treatment plan is something that your neurologist should do. Why am I mentioning it to you? Well, Doctors Model and Sandroff seem to be keenly aware of the inherent challenges in changing or expanding the practice model for neurologists. They recognize that work still needs to be done to bridge the gap between knowledge and clinical practice. I happen to believe strongly in the shared part of shared decision-making. And choosing to share in the decision-making about your treatment plan means that you can make suggestions to your neurologist. So if your neurologist isn't talking to you about how exercise or physical activity can be of benefit to you, then that becomes a question that you can ask them. And together, you can work out the next steps in incorporating exercise into your overall treatment plan. Disease-modifying therapies have been shown to slow MS progression and disability, and they should represent the foundation of any MS treatment plan. But while those long-term benefits are extremely important, you also need strategies for effectively managing the symptoms that get in the way of day-to-day life. If you'd like to get a head start on adding exercise or physical activity to your daily routine, you'll find evidence-based recommendations, videos, and other information at the National MS Society website, and I'll include that link in today's show notes. A moment ago, you heard me say that exercise has been shown to improve MS fatigue. But just like you wouldn't go to the gym to work on legs if your goal was to improve your arms and chest, understanding which exercises can help improve fatigue is going to help you reach your symptom management goals sooner. And a research team in Egypt just published the results of a pilot study that might be helpful in determining how best to use exercise to improve MS fatigue. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has been shown to be effective in easing MS-related fatigue. CBT is a type of talk therapy that changes the way that someone thinks and feels about a particular subject, and that change in thinking enables a change in their behavior. So the Egyptian research team recruited 60 people living with MS who were experiencing fatigue, and half of the participants received a standardized physical therapy protocol focused on symptom relief. The other half of the study participants received cognition-targeted exercises. In these cognition-targeted exercises, a therapist talked with each participant about how they perceived living with MS and their perception or expectations of their treatment outcome. The study participants in this group actively visualized themselves progressing to the next step in their exercise program. The physical therapy part of the program consisted of 8 30-minute sessions tailored to each individual. These sessions focused on aerobic, strength, and flexibility exercises, and all 8 sessions were completed in 4 weeks. Both groups of study participants also received 8 50-minute CBT sessions aimed at the behavioral and cognitive factors that could also contribute to fatigue. The study participants in both groups were similar in terms of age, sex, weight, disability status, education, employment, and even their MS treatments. And the results of the pilot study showed that the participants who had received the cognition-targeted exercises along with cognitive behavioral therapy saw their fatigue reduced after 1 month, and they reported that their reduction in fatigue was maintained for 3 months. Study participants in this group also reported their ability to work and engage in social activities was improved, and their perception of anxiety and stress was reduced. Now, for the study participants in the group that received the standardized physical therapy protocol, the effects were not as obvious, nor were they long-lasting. So these are encouraging results, and although this was a small pilot study, it certainly underscores the need for more research so that best practices in using exercise to help alleviate MS fatigue can be identified. And if you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find a link in today's show notes. MS can feel isolating, and living with MS as we live through a pandemic, well, that can feel even more isolating. Participating in a support group has been shown to deliver tangible, measurable benefits, but the logistics of getting to a support group can be challenging in the best of times, and those challenges can feel insurmountable when you take pandemic-related precautions into account. With a pilot grant from the National MS Society, Dr. Vicki Levitt of Columbia University demonstrated that an online support program reduced depression and loneliness among people living with MS. Now, 2 very good things happened as a result of this pilot study. First, Dr. Levitt launched eSupport Health, a public benefit corporation focused on delivering private, secure, virtual group-based workshops and support moderated by a licensed coach with knowledge and understanding of MS. And I just said that 2 good things happened as a result of this encouraging pilot study. The other thing is that a follow-on study has been funded by the National MS Society. And if you're over the age of 18, living with MS, experiencing moderate levels of depression or anxiety, and have a webcam and internet access, you may be eligible to participate in the CONNECT study. The entire study is being done remotely, and the researchers are prioritizing members of the Black and Latinx communities, as these patients have historically been overlooked in clinical research. But all adults are invited to apply to participate, regardless of race. Study participants will be enrolled in private online support groups led by a licensed therapist who specializes in MS. Each group is expected to have 10 participants who will meet weekly for 12 weeks. Participation in these groups will be free of charge for the duration of the study. The primary outcome being measured in this study is whether participants adhere to the program and complete it. Secondary outcome measures include whether the program improves anxiety, depression, healthcare utilization, and quality of life while decreasing feelings of loneliness. To learn more about the CONNECT study and find out if you're eligible to participate, you can visit esupporthealth.com/CONNECT study, and you'll find that link in today's show notes. I know one of the things that keeps people from connecting is headache. It may be a tension headache, a cluster headache, a rebound headache, or a migraine. But people living with MS are more likely to experience headaches than the general population. In a moment, we'll meet my guest, nurse practitioner Dr. Meagan Adamson, who's going to share some strategies for treating and even preventing your next headache. Headaches are, well, the name says it all, doesn't it? And you probably don't need anyone to remind you that headaches get in the way. They have a very obvious impact on our quality of life. You may not know that people living with MS are more likely to experience headaches. And joining me to talk about what you can do about headaches if you're living with MS is Dr. Meagan Adamson, a nurse practitioner who specializes in treating both headaches and multiple sclerosis. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Adamson.
Thank you for having me, John.
How common is it for someone with MS to experience headaches?
Headaches are very common in the MS population. There's been a lot of research trying to identify a connection versus coincidence, but it is also an overlap of demographics that makes it very hard to distinguish between, what came first, the chicken or the egg, but it is a very common finding in our MS population.
What are the different types of headaches that people with MS might experience, and what are the differences between them?
Sure. So there's several types of headache syndromes. I think the most common we see in our MS population are tension headaches, which are dull. They can be pressure feeling. It can involve your neck and shoulders, and it's usually bitemporal or frontal across the forehead. Migraine, which is a headache syndrome that a lot of our patients experience, and that can be more unilateral, can involve vision changes. It's not usually caused by something else. It is a type of headache syndrome. And cluster headache, which is, they come on very fast. They come on very hard. It's usually unilaterally affecting the eyes, and you may experience a runny nose. And a cluster headache can last months at some occasions. So those are the three more common headache syndromes. And I would say out of those three, we deal with more of tension and migraine-related syndromes.
So if you're someone who's living with MS and you get a headache, is that headache MS related or is it lifestyle related?
I mean, that would be very difficult to distinguish just because, you can have migraine and not have MS, and you can have MS and migraine. So the treatment would be very the same. So it would really, depend on your lifestyle and reflecting on your lifestyle and seeing if there's possibly something that could be triggering these events. And that's why we use migraine diaries often in our office to kind of guide patients in reflection and trying to determine if there's something that's possibly triggering these events.
Do any of the MS disease-modifying therapies cause headaches as a side effect?
So we're very fortunate to have several disease-modifying therapies for MS, right? But everything comes with a side effect. And if you were to look at every package insert, I'm sure you're going to see headache on there for many of them. But the more common is the interferon medications, some of the monoclonal medications such as natalizumab or ocrelizumab. Fingolimod has a lot of headache associated with it. So yes, some of these DMTs have shown to have headache as side effect.
You mentioned tension headaches. You mentioned migraines. I'm wondering, does someone having MS increase the likelihood that they might experience migraines?
So having MS, MS affecting 2 to 3 times more women than men, and then you have headache or migraine specifically affecting more women than men. MS is diagnosed between 20 and 40. Migraines and headaches are typically diagnosed between 20 and 40. So there's a lot of overlap there. So as confusing as it is for our patients, it's also very difficult for us as well. So the patient won't present differently because they have MS. So we try to treat them as 2 separate conditions.
Are migraines a sign of an MS relapse?
On its own, not necessarily. So if someone comes to the office saying they're having a relapse and their only symptom is migraine, I would question that relapse. Usually relapses are accompanied by other symptoms. So on its own, not necessarily, but could it be an associated symptom? Sure.
Some headaches are a sign of a much more serious problem requiring immediate medical attention. What are the warning signs that someone experiencing a severe headache needs urgent medical care?
Right. So some of the urgent signs would be nausea, vomiting, a very severe sudden headache, or how some patients describe this as the worst headache of my life, confusion, unilateral weakness, anything that could possibly present as a stroke, stiff neck, because that can be seen in patients who have meningitis. So obviously, if you're concerned, you should seek emergency attention because we need to rule out these more aggressive disorders, obviously, than worry about whether it's a classic or common migraine or not.
Well, now that we've talked about the problem, let's talk about possible solutions. First, are there ways to prevent headaches from even occurring?
There are, if you know what your triggers are, it's easier for patients who they understand what's triggering their headache or migraine, then yes, you can prevent them. There's medications that we call preventatives, but it's really to help reduce the frequency and intensity of migraine or headache. I wish there was a magic pill that took them all away, and you never have one again, but that's just not where we are. Typically, if you can avoid your known triggers, those patients do very well.
Well, you've mentioned knowing your triggers is a step toward preventative care. How can someone identify what their triggers might be?
So again, it's a lot of self-reflection. So if you're someone who's experiencing, let's say, a headache every time there's a storm, or every time maybe before a menstrual cycle, or some patients do have headache as one of their initial signs of an impending relapse. So it's a lot of documenting. It's a lot of understanding yourself, having a good sense of autonomy. It's not something that you're going to identify overnight. It's going to be a process.
Are migraines treated differently for someone who's living with MS compared to someone who doesn't have MS?
No, I treat them as two separate things. So it's very individualized. So we treat migraine as migraine and MS as MS, because you can have migraine and MS, and you can have migraine and not MS.
And what about tension headaches? Are there effective treatments for tension headache?
Yeah, so tension headache, since there is a lot of muscle involvement, or can be, especially with shoulder and neck tension, we may suggest different medications, possibly something like an antispasm, muscle relaxer, physical therapy, acupuncture, biofeedback. So there are different ways in treating different types of headache.
I heard you mention things like physical therapy, biofeedback. I know that people who are living with MS are often reluctant to add another medication to the list of medications they already need to keep track of. It sounds like there are alternative ways to treat headaches.
Yes, there's many alternative ways. I mean, our MS patients already have a very lengthy medication list, and it would be easy just to prescribe something, right? So that can be done, but I think the best situation for our patients to be in is to look at the alternative and complementary therapies and try to keep their medication list down, not just for their quality of life but also because of interactions between medications. So I think it's not a medication in itself may not necessarily be the entire solution.
Well, Dr. Meagan Adamson, thank you for all you do to improve the health and quality of life for people living with MS. And thanks for talking with me today.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/228. You'll find that link in today's show notes, so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or text. If you have a minute, I hope you'll visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Real Talk MS app for your iOS or Android smartphone or tablet. It's the best way for us to stay connected. The app will automatically download the latest episode of Real Talk MS. You'll be able to access any of our past episodes. You'll be able to save your favorite episodes. And it's a great way for me to share bonus content with you. The app is free, so I hope you'll download it today. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.